5 or 6 years in the business in Toronto, but it was kind of fits and starts, and I never really took one job and built it into another job. And then I was sitting around December of 2009, and I went, all right, like, what do I want to do? What makes me happy? And that's when acting really took off. I moved to Los Angeles, and it was nice. It was nice and steady. You know, I got my first American job in fall of 2010. I started booking guest starring roles, and then the following year I booked my first series regular on Amell. I thought that went great, and then this fall was really good. I got offered the job for the first time in private practice, and I had a chance to do some comedy, and then pilot season rolled around, and this was my second audition in pilot season. But my first one was terrible because I was super excited for this one. Like, I read the script and I go, okay. And my Canadian agent actually emailed me, and he was like, "This one's really important. You do a really good job. You should get this job." And I'm like, "Oh, there's no chance that I'm going to get the job now." And it worked out.
And what were you on to do?
I was super competitive as a kid. I played a lot of sports as a kid. One of the things that I said to the producers at my David Nutter was in the room, Andrew Kreisberg, Jeff Johns was in the room, Mark Guggenheim, Greg Berlanti was eventually in the room, and one of the things I said to them is, you know, what do you guys picture in terms of action for the show? They said, "You want to be really physical, you want to be porn style, you want this," and I said, "Good, because that is something." Well, I'm young enough and everything still works. Like, this is something that I really want to do. I remember reading a quote by Brad Pitt when he was doing, I almost said quote, Troy, and he said, you know, it came to a point with the physicality that I just wanted to see how far I could push myself. And that's what I said to them. I mean, they probably thought that it was bullshit, but I was serious.
Can you talk about the intense physical training? Have you done archery training? What have you?
I did some basic fight training, almost like wax on, wax off stuff, like trapping and blocking. And then I went into parkour, and then we got more into, this was for the pilot, and then we got more into the physical side of fighting, and just exercise where you're manipulating your own body weight. And then I got into archery training, and maybe 2 weeks before we shot the pilot, because the form, as enthusiastic as comic book fans are, archery fans are as enthusiastic. And if your form is bad, they harpoon you, no pun intended. And so it was really important to me to be good. And now what we're doing in training for getting into the series is, you know, we're building more stuff. We're doing a lot of boxing, kicking, elbows, jiu-jitsu, and kicking is awful. It's really tough. It's good and it's efficient, and it's a nice skill set to have, but getting towards being a good kicker is. The stunt coordinator for the show, specifically the fight for James Manford, he refuses to take shortcuts. So he only wants to do things that I can actually do. And so, like, no, there's no faking. We don't faking things.
How difficult?
All the parkour stuff. I'm able to do everything that we had in the parkour scene. The big Kong vault that you see in the pilot, that's me. The chin-ups, the sit-ups, that's me. There were a couple of things that just from a standpoint of insurance, I was not allowed to do. Because it won't always be like this, but I think there's like 3 scenes in the pilot that I'm not in. And if I injured myself, then that just totally destroys the production. So I didn't know that going into the pilot, and I was a bit of a handful on the second day when my stunt double comes in and they're setting up the shot. What is going on here? But I understand that they do give me a lot more leeway than I think that they were expecting to. So the expectation is now a little bit different. So I think we'll do more as we get further into it.
Can you talk about the challenges of playing such an iconic role and going into it with such a fan base already?
I didn't have any time to think about it. You know, I had all this super intensive training, and I was meeting people, I was meeting crew, and I was meeting cast, and I was in the city, because I'm Canadian, but I had spent little to no time in Vancouver. And when I first got to Vancouver, our director David Nutter took me out to dinner, and even through the audition process, my first time that I auditioned was on a Wednesday, and I went back for the studio test on the Friday, and he wanted to have a work session with me beforehand, and he sat me down and he said, "Listen, I've directed a ton of pilots. I directed the pilot for Smallville. I was the one that told the studio and the network that Tom Welling was my guy." And he said, "And I'm going to do the same thing for you. So you and I are in this together, and we're going to go through the next 4 days. We're going to jump through every single hoop that they want us to, and then we're going to go to Vancouver and we're going to make a good pilot." And he said the same thing to me when I first got to went out to dinner, and he said, "Look, it's you and me, man. We're in it together." And so I didn't have a need to feel any pressure because I felt very safe.
Did you research a lot on PTSD patients and that kind of stuff, or did you meet any?
I didn't get a chance to meet anybody. That's something that we haven't really explored on an emotional side. Everything for Oliver is very in the present day. It's very, very contained and internal at the moment. The only outward expression of it that we see is rage, and so we just read the second episode, and we're going to have to deal with the other half of that, and really understanding PTSD is something that we're going to explore in the series, and that's something that I actually think that Diggle will help me with a little bit. That relationship, we had to cut a few scenes from the pilot, because just for time, if nothing else. And the relationship between Oliver and Diggle is something that I think fans are really going to enjoy from that standpoint.
They talked about the grayness and how everything should be grounded. So when you're looking at Oliver and you kind of have to maintain this intensity with him, how are you kind of grounding that for yourself? Where are you coming from to kind of put yourself in that headspace and also to kind of maintain that? I mean, it's a lot to do for a long period with the character. So
yeah, and you have a nice idea of where he came from, which helps me as an actor. I read the script a bunch of times overall, and then it just scene to scene, my focus is almost entirely on interacting with the other actor in the scene, and then everything takes care of itself from that point. The words are there, and as long as you are really interacting with that person, listening and responding, then I find that it works. I don't, overall, thinking about the character's mythology, I don't get too far into the overall arc. It's my responsibility, episode by episode. Just all that I can focus on. It's not like you can't think about season 2, let alone episode 3. You gotta think about episode 2. It's gotta be just as good. It's gotta be better.
in terms of the character,
Sorry, I have to take him actually.
Oh,
Thank you.